Hello, travelers. Welcome to Reach the World. For over 20 years, Reach the World has used virtual exchange to inspire youth to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens. My name is Tim, and this week, together with Citi's E4Education campaign, we're going on a journey to explore how global citizens can put that valuable skill set to work as part of a global career. Throughout this week, we'll be connecting with Citi employees and financial capitals around the world. They've generously agreed to share their stories, observations, and tips to finding success in this highly interconnected global economy. Today, we're traveling to Shanghai, China to speak with Hai Lin. Hai Lin. Hai is joining us to talk about working, living, and thriving professionally in the bustling city of Shanghai. But before we meet Hai, I want to welcome the teachers, students, Reach the World travelers, and early career professionals who are watching today. Feel free to use the YouTube chat bar to let us know you're here, where you're joining from, and of course to share any questions you have for Hai as we go. With that, let's journey to China. Welcome to Reach the World, Hai.
Thank you, Tim. Hello, Reach the Worlders, and good evening and good morning, depends where you are now. It's my pleasure to join this lovely session to basically share some of my personal experience, especially with such a large organization, Citibank.
Fantastic. I'm happy to have you here. We can dive right in if you're ready. I'm very curious to know how you sort of started on your global journey as it is, and where that journey has taken you so far in your career.
Sure. I joined Citi in 2002. Okay, so I've been with this great bank for 19 years. I think how I started my career was also rather interesting, right? Like many of you, the fresh graduates, okay, I just, apply for the job, in a few banks. And obviously, the interview with Citi went very well. And back then I was studying Shanghai, right? So all I thought was, look, I'm going to get a job in Citibank Shanghai, right? That's all. Went to the interview, the interviewers look at my CV, oh, look, your major is mechanical engineering, you looks like a smart guy. We are thinking of sending you to Singapore. I was like, what are you talking about? Singapore? I've never thought about that. And interestingly, the feedback I got is, hey, you look like a smart guy, but your English needs to improve. And we're sending you to Singapore for interview in 2 months' time. I was really kind of scrambled. I said, look, okay, fine. I barely speak any English back then. So I basically enrolled for English class for a month. And then 2 months later, I jumped on a plane, went to Singapore, met a bunch of Citi seniors. It went well. It was like 1 day, very intensive interviews. Once I flew back to Shanghai, landed in Shanghai, switched on very old Nokia mobile phone. A call came in from Citi Singapore HR. Hey, the interview went well. You are coming to Singapore. Okay, so that basically completely opened my eyes. Okay, imagine for a young guy, basically grew up, educated in China, who has never thought about going abroad. Now, at the very earliest stage of his career, he's going to Singapore. Right,
That's
so
amazing.
that sort of started my sort of global citizenship journey.
That's amazing. Obviously you're back in Shanghai now. Have you made other stops along the way?
Yes, of course. And also, I came back to Shanghai in 2015, right? That was like 13 years later, right? I never thought about that, I would have such a wonderful journey, in Asia. So I spent 9 years in Singapore, 2 years in Taiwan, 2 years in Hong Kong, right? I would just say, look, this journey basically really kind of opened up my eyes, kind of helped me to build a strong global network. So now if I run into anything, I need to talk to someone in Singapore, someone in Hong Kong, I can pick up the phone call and people know me. A lot of times, like if the other side knows you well, things get much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, you said you're a mechanical engineering student. A lot of the people I've spoken to over the course of the last week knew they were going to be in finance from the moment they set out from college. How did you go from mechanical engineering sort of into the world of banking?
That's also quite interesting. Well, I spent a long time studying mechanical engineering. To a point, I said, look, maybe my life should be more than that. That's why I started to apply jobs in the bank. Okay. And how I ended up in global markets, I think is also partially given, my kind of academic background. Because studying in mechanical engineering, you have to be strong in math, right? So that's how I got this opportunity to work in the global markets. And also, it's quite funny. It's basically in the sort of last round of interview. So I was asked this question, hey, look, your major is mechanical engineering and you had zero experience in business or finance. Why should we hire you? All right, I was quite kind of blunt in my face. I said, look, actually, I don't have any answer to that. But fortunately, I think through all the interviews, I think the Citi seniors I interact with, they're very nice person. They explained very well what is markets. Back then it's called sales and trading. So my answer was, look, oh, yeah, that's true. My English sucks. I don't have any relevant academic background in business or finance. But I'm pretty sure I work very hard. I learn very fast. And the Citi sales and trading seems you guys like to take smart risk. Maybe you should try take risk on me.
Very good. I like that.
Yeah.
And it worked.
It worked.
Yeah. Fantastic. You mentioned that you've stopped in other countries and offices and markets along the way, and now you're back in Shanghai. Let's talk for a minute about Shanghai specifically as a market. Fascinating city, fascinating history. What is it like to live and work in Shanghai specifically?
Shanghai is a fascinating city, right? Fast pace. Okay. It took me probably almost half a year to sort of readjust. Okay, imagine I worked in Taiwan for 2 years and then moved back to Shanghai. The pace are very different, right? I think Taiwan is rather relaxed. Like my wife and I, before COVID, we sort of fly back to Taipei like once a quarter, just spend the weekend there. Saturday morning doing nothing, sit in a coffee shop for like 4 or 5 hours. In Shanghai, you feel like you're always moving, constantly moving, right? There's so much happening. You're constantly thinking of, oh, how can I do things differently? How can I defend my wallet share? How can I beat my competitors, right? So that basically gives you a lot of sort of pressure to continue kind of doing new things. In Shanghai, I think, it's now definitely an international city, right? And Citi has playing a very unique role. One, we help a lot of multinational companies to come into China, help them expand. At the same time, there's so many kind of fast growing Chinese unicorns, right? We're seeing companies maybe was only built like 3-4 years ago, but look at market cap over billions, right? And how these companies can sort of become even more successful, right? They will require banks like us to provide professional services, right? So definitely, it's very interesting from both kind of dynamics. One is helping the global corporates coming to China be more successful. The other angle is to help the Chinese corporates to going abroad, become even more, to gain more global presence.
So if you had to sort of give the city of Shanghai a personality, you'd say it's busy, it's very active, is it always changing?
Yes.
Okay. What is your typical day like? How do you spend an average work day, I should say?
Right. I normally come to office around 8:15, plus or minus like 5-10 minutes. Okay, so that's I like to start my day early, basically by following up what's happening overnight globally, because we're in the financial markets. You have to keep up with what happened elsewhere. And then especially during the COVID period, where people cannot travel, then you imagine there'll be lots of Zoom calls, right? Then you basically start your day with a number of Zoom calls. And I'm a sales manager. So of course, every day you will run into various kind of, I won't call it issues, but various kind of scenarios where my team member would come to me for sort of appealing and look for help. And again, for any kind of large organization, there might be some sort of firefighting, right? Because that again, you basically, many times you come in with a schedule. Look, these are 10 things I want to do. And by 7 p.m., when you go back, look at that list, only 2 are checked, right? Because then most of your day were distracted by many other stuff. Then for me is kind of post 7 become again like my own time. I start to go back to my kind of to-do list and start to work on them. If I cannot finish all of them, then I'm going to put that into my next day's to-do list.
Well, that sounds very similar to how things work in Chicago and every other place I've heard of.
But one thing very important is, I know everyone has a very busy schedule, but do find a time to go exercise.
Good advice. Very good advice. Well, thank you for being letting us be your first Zoom call of the day. I'm sure you'll have many more to follow. So how do you get to work? Do you drive? Do you walk? Do you take public transportation?
I drive.
Okay. Is that fairly common for Shanghai?
Yes, it is quite common. And of course, the result is traffic is quite bad. So I have to come in early to avoid the traffic, to avoid the peak hours.
Okay. What is your favorite thing about living and working in Shanghai?
My favorite thing in work or kind of in leisure time? Or
let's start with work. I want to finish with leisure, like what you'd recommend for visitors. But as far as like just being in Shanghai, especially compared to some of the other places that you've lived and work, what's really unique and special and great about Shanghai?
I think Shanghai is, like I said, is a large international city, right? So you can find very different flavors. For example, if you live in Pudong, I mean, especially in Lujiazui area, that's where a lot of foreign banks are based, right? So it's really kind of financial district, right? You start to feel the fast pace. But then, especially over the weekends, when you go to the Puxi side, the certain kind of the old French colonial area, then I think you can start to feel the pace actually got slowed down quite a bit. And you can really kind of walk along the streets and check out those small little coffee shops, small restaurants. And Shanghai has more and more expats, right? So probably you mentioned you came to Shanghai 15 years ago. I think back then there were definitely much fewer expats. Right? But now, especially over the weekend, you go to some of the famous pubs, restaurants, you are surrounded by expats.
Okay. Do you think your description of Shanghai as always moving and fast-paced is related to the line of work that you're in, the finance industry specifically, or does that pace extend across the city and really like blanket the whole atmosphere of the city?
Absolutely. Right? I think we are in the age of era of kind of innovation, right? So innovation is everywhere, not just banking industry, right? But if you look at other like pharmaceutical, look at in the semiconductor, people all are looking for innovations, right? So I would say, look, there's a big sort of entrepreneurship going around, right? I mean, ranging from people probably you and my age, but also a lot of like youngsters, right? The other day I was just having my breakfast in a small kind of coffee shop. There were two young kids, seems like they just right after college or even still can have their graduate program. They were talking about setting up something. They were talking about, oh, I'm having this discussion with the investor later. Right. So I think that's the sort of entrepreneurship going around in many people in many industries.
Very interesting. Generally speaking, for our audience who are young people, like the people you met in the coffee shop or you overheard in the coffee shop, who are just starting off with their careers, what are some things that have really served you well professionally, some things that have helped you be successful at a place like Citi?
Sure. I think first I want to emphasize, just like I interview the applicants, right? It's attitude, 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 right? I think we all are smart people. We're all smart people. We all have strong, good education. So you're basically going to a firm with a lot of good people surrounding you, right? So you got to have a very good attitude. Okay, you are willing to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty, right? And stop saying, look, oh, I'm a smart guy, so all the stuff you gave to me is just like too tedious. I don't want to be bothered by doing kind of routine, tedious stuff, right? But so to me, I think first thing is attitude. The second thing is be curiosity, right? The world keeps changing every day, right? So you just cannot be complacent with your daily BAU. You have to be curious about what other people are doing, what other clients are doing, what markets are doing, right? So you continue absorbing new things. And then when a new opportunity comes, you say, hey, look, I'm the person. I'm better prepared than my peers, right? Then the third one is sort of be open-minded and also be willing to blend in any new culture, right? And build your network. Because throughout your careers, I think your network will help you become even more successful.
It's great advice. I imagine you work with people who are not from Shanghai originally, who also work with you in the Shanghai office. Are there things that they do when they come to the Shanghai office that help them really fit in with that culture? Every sort of city, culture, workplace has some unique characteristics. What do people do who end up being very successful in your office?
Right. I think overall, I would say Asia overall is very accommodative, to foreigners. Okay. I think especially like, Western people coming to Asia, coming to Singapore, Hong Kong, or even Shanghai, right? I think they will find such cities are very accommodative. Okay. Singapore is a very easy place for foreigners because, everyone speaks good English. Right, very easy for you to get around, get things. Hong Kong, slightly worse than Singapore. Not many local people speak English, especially taxi drivers. Okay, so sometimes I see the Western people, they will get their secretary to write down the address and show the taxi driver. Right, I think similarly in Shanghai, I think again, many more young people speak good English. Okay, but still there's a fair percentage of people don't speak English. But again, I think with the increasing population of expats, right, the foreigners, they get to have their own community, okay, which help each other to help them to kind of navigate the city. And also, I think, in the work environment, I think that's also how I learned, right? I mean, I think for people like you looking at me as a kind of people from mainland China versus people from Singapore, people from Hong Kong, people from Taiwan, we all look the same, right? We're all Chinese. But I think given the culture, given the education, I think the mindset are still quite different, right? So I think, basically very important is when you go to a new place, don't have any sort of I would say prototype, right? So basically don't think, oh, this is what I'm going to do things. You really have to sort of, be open. Okay, just for example, I spent like 13 years overseas, right? So I was sort of trained it by a kind of more Western culture, working environment. So in Singapore, people like to do kind of team gathering, team drinks, but it's always on Thursday, right? So on Friday, give a feeling, hey, look, today is Friday. I'm really look forward to the weekend with my family. Now, and then when I moved back to Shanghai, right, I said, look, guys, let's also have a kind of team drink, team dinner. How's that? The team were very excited. I said, boss, how about this Friday? I was like, why is Friday? Oh, because tomorrow is Saturday. Or yeah, that's why Friday night you need to spend with your family. Right? So there are some very interesting kind of nuances. You basically you have to sort of get to know. Sometimes you have to respect the culture, but sometimes I think you should also try to influence a little bit. But overall, I think the key message I think to everyone is really have to be open-minded and have that general interest to understand the local culture and try to blend in. I think that would be a sort of my own experience that helped me to basically sort of adjust well into many different kind of working places.
Okay, great. Thank you. You've mentioned language a few times. I know that lots of students in the United States now are studying Mandarin. It's a very popular language to learn. How important is it to be able to speak, Chinese or the language of where you're coming to work in Asia, knowing that many multinational corporations, English is the language of business?
I think it's always good to pick up second language, right? So now when I look back my school days, if I had a second chance, I would definitely pick up a second foreign language, right? Aside from English. I think being able to speak, for example, in China, being able to speak Chinese for foreigners, that definitely help to kind of to be accepted by the kind of Chinese community much better, right? Because naturally people would not expect a foreigner to speak Chinese. So it doesn't matter how fluent or how bad you speak, but basically just showing the willingness you are willing to learn their language, people will love you. Okay, so a lot of times when you're meeting with a new client, and foreigners start to greeting the client in Chinese, people was, wow, you speak Chinese. So suddenly that time took for the ice breaking become a few seconds. Fantastic. Right? So definitely I would say that's quite powerful.
And if you can learn English well enough to ace a job interview in Singapore in 1 month, people coming to Shanghai can do the same, right?
Yeah, depends how much time you spend.
Right. Yeah, for sure. You mentioned now that you have a chance as part of your job to interview young people who are trying to get jobs at Citi. I wonder if you had a candidate come to you who was a smart person who was had a mechanical engineering background and said they'd work hard, would you have hired yourself from 18 years ago today?
I would say in the last few years, I hadn't interviewed anyone who have a mechanical engineering background, but more from a double E, like electronic engineering, or more from kind of data science backgrounds.
Okay. All right, great. Well, I want to end on a fun question. For anyone who might be coming to Shanghai for the first time, who's never been to Shanghai, what would be something they'd absolutely have to do to really experience Shanghai? It can be a couple things too. I know it's a hard question to answer with just one thing sometimes.
Right. Okay. Look, I'm a very active person, so I like to run in the morning. So my suggestion would be get up early in the morning and try to go to the pond and basically run along the river. Okay, you get the chance to enjoy the beautiful kind of skylines. Okay, so that's kind of early in the morning. And then you can get your sort of brunch, at some of Little Road in that French colony area. Okay, you get time to sit there and look the good combination of kind of foreign versus like local. There's a good combination there, right? So I think you enjoy that. And then I think afternoon again. I think you can probably go to Xintiandi. Okay, whether again it's a good mixture of modern versus like historical stuff, right? So at night again, there's so many kind of good restaurants, pubs for the young people to kind of spend time, right? But so overall, I think Shanghai is a very fascinating place, and it's quite easy for people to move around, right? I think for people coming to Shanghai, you can just go to TripAdvisor, okay? And if you do know some of the local friends, or if you do read some Chinese, try with one of the local app like Dianping. Okay, you'll get so much information.
All right.
Help you to navigate.
Thank you very much. I'm thinking about compiling just the city FX guide to local cities. I'm getting all this great information from you and your colleagues about where I have to go and what I have to see if I came to any of those places. So thank you so much for completing the Shanghai chapter of that book. It's been really nice talking to you, Hai. I really appreciate you waking up early with us so you could share your global journey. Thanks also to our entire audience for tuning in today. There are many more, actually there's 2 more this week, Citi Global Career Journey stops to come. So please stay tuned. And if you missed any of our previous stops in London, Johannesburg, Sao Paulo, Singapore, Bangkok, Seoul, Kampala, we made a lot of stops so far. You can find recordings of those events at Reach the World's YouTube channel, where we've set up a special Citi Global Career Journey playlist. Special thanks to the Citi E4 Education campaign and to all our many Citi volunteers for making this learning experience possible. Hi, thank you so much. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, team.